Welcome to the Allen Press webinar, Journal Supplements, Rewards and Risks. I'm Joanna Gillette, Product Marketing Manager at Allen Press, and I'll be your host today. On your screen, you should see some general information about participating in today's webinar. I'm going to go over these items very quickly before we get started. Our presenter will be answering questions at the end of the webinar. If you do have questions, please use the chat function of WebEx to direct questions to the webinar host, which is me, and you can do that at any time during the presentation. We're using voice over IP technology to broadcast the audio for today's webinar, so please make sure you have the volume turned up on your PC if you're having trouble hearing. To avoid background noise, participants joining via voice over IP will be muted automatically. Please do not unmute your telephone at any point during the presentation. Voice over IP quality may vary depending on network traffic today, so if you're having trouble hearing, remember you can call in to listen to the webinar over our conference line. The toll-free telephone number and participant passcode for the conference line are listed next to the green telephone icon on this slide. If you do call into the conference line, please be sure to mute your telephone. You can continue the conversation with us and your fellow attendees after the webinar on the Allen Press Facebook page. Here you can post a comment, share an idea, or ask a question. And of course, we also encourage attendees to tweet both during and after the event using the hashtag APWeb33. Today, Peter Burns will share best practices for publishing supplements. Journal supplements have implications for your finances, your editorial team, even your impact factor. This webinar will help sort out the details you'll need to consider when deciding whether a supplement is the best outlet for special content. Peter's presentation is also chock full of case studies that provide real-world examples from publishers like you. Peter Burns has worked in the publishing industry for more than 20 years. He spent several years as a copy editor at such publications as Popular Mechanics and the National Law Journal. In 2003, he joined Allen Press, where he worked as a managing editor for several years, and is now a publisher managing 6 peer-reviewed journals. I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Peter now to get us started.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I want to give you an overview first of the things I'll be covering in this webinar, including a definition of supplement, the reasons you might want to publish a supplement, some pitfalls to avoid, guidelines to consider and be aware of, best practices if you decide to proceed with publishing a supplement, and as Joanna said, real-world case studies so you can see what other journals have done. So first I want to start with a definition of the supplement. And one thing that I've noticed is that some people will use the term supplement and special issue interchangeably. And for purposes of this webinar, what I'm talking about is an additional issue of your journal. If you publish 6 issues a year, you can do anything you want with one of those 6 issues, say dedicate one to a specific topic. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a supplement. But if you publish a 7th issue, that's the issue that I'm talking about today. And there are implications here for PubMed, for the Postal Service, and for your subscribers, and those are some of the things I'll be talking about. So a supplement can be part of a journal subscription, but not necessarily. And it can also be available in multiple formats, just like your journal, either in print or online or both. So let's talk a little bit about the various things you might want to include in a supplement. And there are different reasons for publishing. You might want to and I work with a journal that does this. The Society has a meeting every January, so they publish a meeting program the previous October. It comes out with the issue of the journal, and this is a great preview for the meeting and also serves as a trigger so that Society members will know, it's time to register. You can, of course, grab a bunch of articles related to a specific topic and publish those together in a supplement. It makes editorial sense. It could also be related to a special occasion, such as not only a meeting, but maybe an anniversary. I've also seen what I call a greatest hits. These are articles that have been published before, and these might be the most accessed articles online or maybe the most cited articles over time. And yes, it is okay that has been previously published, but there are some guidelines that you might want to follow if you do that, and I'll talk about that a little later in the webinar. And I've also seen commemorative issues that may want to celebrate the achievement or the lifetime work of someone prominent in your field. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the reasons to publish a supplement, which basically fall into two categories, financial and editorial. So for financial, there can be some real benefits to publishing a supplement, especially if this is supported with sponsorship or with ad sales. Sometimes also the editorial content simply lends itself to a supplement for a variety of reasons. If you have a lot of papers coming your way on an emerging topic, for example, or an area of research that you haven't covered before, but you still consider within the scope of the journal. And also special events such as I said, an anniversary or a meeting or a conference. Other reasons to publish a supplement include maybe your journal has a backlog of articles. We work with a journal here at Allen Press that has a considerable backlog and regularly publishes 6 issues a year, but occasionally publishes a 7th issue just to help clear out some of those articles that have been waiting on publication. Sometimes you have content that is outside the usual scope of your journal, but you still think that your readership is going to be interested in those topics. So maybe that's worthy of special treatment, such as a supplement. And another thing you can do is test the waters for another journal. You may be hesitant to launch another journal, but you think maybe there's a market for an expanded scope of coverage in your discipline. So one thing you might want to do is package a group of articles together into a supplement and then see how it does. Test the readership, the online usage, and over time look at the citation usage and see if maybe launching another journal that covers that field is worth considering. So I also want to address some of the pitfalls, and this is minor as far as pitfalls go, but I wanted to mention it. When you're searching for information on supplements, you will probably want to tailor your search terms to be very specific, or else you might find a lot of information on nutritional supplements or dietary supplements. So make sure to put something in your search terms regarding journals or scholarly publications. But there are bigger pitfalls out there to be aware of, including financial concerns. So if you're going to publish a supplement, you're probably going to incur some extra costs. And you'll just want to consider things like, where is the money going to come from to cover these costs? And production costs are certainly a big part of that. You'll want to have an idea ahead of time what your budget is going to be. Are you going to print this supplement? Is it going to be online? Do you want to even do something like make an ebook? All of those things have costs involved. So you'll want to get estimates ahead of time. But you also want to account for the staff time that's going to go into publishing the supplement. Excuse me. And if you're going to dedicate any resources to marketing, which there are often good reasons to doing so, you might want to factor those costs in early. And you might want to consider that you can charge, if you're selling the supplement, beyond your core readership. But that brings up additional questions, such as, well, how much am I going to charge for the supplement? And how am I going to process those orders? How are we going to get the word out about the supplement so people even know it exists? All of these things have financial implications, and I would encourage you to start early in the planning process, try to figure out what your budget is and how to account for all of those costs. Another thing to consider is that if your journal has an impact factor, publishing a supplement under the banner of your journal name is going to influence that impact factor. And just for those of you who have not gone into a lot of detail about how the impact factor is calculated, I want to go over this for a moment. This is the number of articles that were published in a 2-year period, and then the number of citations to those articles in a 1-year period. So one thing to keep in mind is how long your articles are staying in that window where they can be cited and influence the journal's impact factor. So this illustrates what I'm talking about. The citation window is 1 year, and for this example, the 2013 impact factor is the number of citations during the year 2013 to articles that were published in the previous 2 years. So any article that was published in 2011 or 2012 is included in this calculation. If you think that the material in your supplement is going to benefit your journal in terms of citations, then you'll want to get the most impact out of it. And so what I would recommend doing is publishing early in the year so that those articles are in that window for the most possible time. If they're published early in 2011, in this example, then you have a full 2 years for other people to find those articles, write their own papers, get them through peer review, and get them accepted and published in another publication, so that in 2013 you get credit for those citations. If the supplement is published late in 2011, then those articles are only going to be in that window for about half the possible time. So this is something to keep in mind. So other pitfalls to consider include your editorial staff. And I'm going to go through some case studies later in this webinar. One theme kept recurring as I talked to people about what they've done with their journals, which is that publishing supplements do add to the workload for the editorial staff. So keep that in mind. And if you're embarking on your first supplement project, you might want to just be aware that publishing this supplement could potentially slow down progress on your regular journal issues. Now, some journals will bring in guest editors, and that can help to keep things moving, but keep in mind that if your guest editors are not familiar with the publication process, they may require training. They may need to know explicitly what the deadlines are going to be. They may need training on your peer review system, and they will definitely need to know how to work with your printer and publisher. Keep in mind also that this is going to place a burden on your peer review process. You want to make sure that you can maintain the same quality and the deadlines with no adverse effect on your regular journal. And if you're publishing a supplement for the first time, but you think that this could lead to future supplements, you may want to consider adding staff so that this relieves the burden on your existing staff. A final pitfall I just want to mention is in the category of unrealistic expectations, especially if publishing a supplement is something you have not done before. I just think that when you're planning your budget and you're looking at the editorial burden this places on your staff, you just want to keep in mind that you want to keep your expectations realistic. And if you want to sell your supplement beyond your core journal readership, particularly try to assess what kind of demand there is for this content. One way to do that would be to take a survey. survey your members, and survey others in your discipline, and let them know that you're thinking about publishing a supplement on a given topic, and ask if that's interesting to them or if this is something they would actually purchase. This can help with planning and particularly budget setting. So now I want to address some guidelines to be aware of. And a word about guidelines, a lot of these have to do with what your overall goals are for your supplement. For example, PubMed has a guideline that for journals that are included in its collection that publish a supplement, the supplement needs to be available in the same format as the journal. So if you have journal subscribers that get the journal in print and online format, those same people need to get the supplement in exactly those formats. That's if you want the supplement to be included in Medline and PubMed. If for some reason you don't care if the supplement is included in those same places with the journal, then that's not a guideline you necessarily have to follow, but it is something to be aware of. Another guideline that anyone publishing a medical supplement will definitely want to be aware of is to fully disclose any potential conflict of interest. The very act of publishing a supplement raises a red flag for PubMed. And you may be thinking, well, my journal has been indexed in Medline for years, and we've been in PubMed for years, so why would we suddenly incur extra scrutiny for publishing a supplement? I think it's a good question, but the answer is here in a quote from the PubMed webpage. Citation of these supplements in Medline may give the appearance that for-profit interests have acquired a place in the scholarly literature while working outside of the usual standards for publication. So what they're saying is, yes, your journal was accepted into Medline, but this supplement is a special animal, and we're going to look at it closely. And as you can imagine, the reason for the extra scrutiny is because in some cases, journals have collaborated with for-profit entities to publish a supplement, and in some cases, there may have been a conflict of interest. And so PubMed is just trying to ensure that that doesn't happen in case your supplement is going to be indexed along with the journal. So as I said, I'm going to include links at the end of the webinar to these resources. And for those of you publishing in the medical field, I would encourage you to look at these PubMed guidelines carefully. So let's look at the World Association of Medical Editors, or WAMI. They have some useful guidelines as well, which include that reprinted articles not only must specify that they have been reprinted, but also that they appear as they were originally published. So no revisionist history allowed there. Also, the content should not be influenced by advertisers. And if the peer review protocol for the supplement is any different from the journal, that should be explicitly stated as well. Let's look also at the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, or ICMJE. They publish some guidelines on their website that are very useful. They outline the editor's roles and responsibilities. They also address matters of authorship, content in the supplement, and advertising guidelines. Now I want to look again at Thomson and the Journal Citation Index. Unlike PubMed, Thomson doesn't really have formal rules regarding the format or the distribution of the supplement. But one thing to keep in mind is that if your journal is currently being reviewed for inclusion in the Journal Citation Report, in other words, you have applied to receive an impact factor and that decision is still pending, one thing to consider is that they're looking for journals that publish substantive content. And if you're publishing proceedings or meeting abstracts, and that makes a significant portion of your content, then the journal may not be accepted for inclusion. And to clarify that, I spoke with James Testa at Thomson, who clarified, and I'm paraphrasing what he said here, but He said a successful journal market consists of both supply and demand. And if you're publishing something that they may consider filler, such as proceedings or abstracts, then that suggests there's not a lot of supply or demand, and maybe the journal itself is not going to be sustainable for the long term. So another something to keep in mind. And also regarding Thomson, the supplements, if they're indexed with the journal in the journal citation report, they will be included in the impact factor. But something to keep in mind is that if you publish meeting abstracts, the abstracts themselves are typically not considered citable items. And so the abstracts will not be counted in the denominator of that calculation. And remember, the calculation is the denominator is the number of articles, the numerator is the number of citations. So if the journal does get citations to your abstracts, then that is counted. So in a way, it's like extra credit points. That citation is considered a freebie, and publishing the abstracts is not going to hurt your journal, but if you get a citation, then you benefit from it. And also, if you publish a supplement, Thomson will only index it if it's available to them. So if you're sending your journal to Thomson for indexing and you want the supplement included with it, just make sure to send that to them as well. Now, as you can imagine, the U.S. Postal Service also has guidelines for supplements, including the fact that at least 25% of the editorial content must be germane to the publication itself. And this is a rule that has changed because as long as I can remember, you needed to print supplement to the journal on the cover of the supplement, but as long as they're packaged together, you no longer have to do that. Also keep in mind that pages are included in the advertising percentage calculation for postal purposes. Further about U.S. Postal Service, if the combined weight of the journal issue and the supplement comes in at more than 1 1/4 pounds, you will lose automation discounts. So this could cost you, depending on the circulation of your journal, it could be a significant cost. Also, you may be wondering if it's possible to substitute a regular issue of your journal with a supplement. Well, you can, but then it's not really a supplement in that case. It would need to be numbered just like the regular journal. And also keep in mind with the Postal Service that you have already told them at some point how many issues of your journal you're going to publish that year if you have serial publication status. So anything you do that adds or subtracts from that number is going to incur scrutiny from the post office. And it might be that you can resolve that problem with a letter to the post office, but I would also encourage you to cultivate a contact at your local post office or wherever it is that your journal enters the mail stream. And if you see something that is likely to happen, if you have told the post office you're going to publish 6 issues this year, but you actually intend to publish 7, get a hold of them before that happens and just make sure they know what's going on and why. So let's also talk about ISSNs. And if you publish a serial publication, you probably have an ISSN, which is the International Standard Serial Number. There is a requirement that each medium of publication receives its own ISSN. So if you have a print journal and an online journal, those are 2 different ISSNs. And typically the supplement that you publish will get the same ISSN as the journal, provided the trim size of the supplement is the same as the parent publication. Also, if the supplement updates or is to be used with the parent publication, it's important to indicate that, and also to indicate whether the supplement is included in the subscription. Now, ISSNs are procured through the ISSN agency in your country. In the U.S., that's the Library of Congress. In Canada, it's Library and Archives Canada. And there's a regulation that a new ISSN is necessary if there are changes to the title or to the format of the publication. The ISSN, keep in mind, has nothing to do with copyright or postal rates. It's more like a Social Security number for your serial publication and is widely used by librarians and booksellers so that they can identify your publication. And if you're publishing a supplement along with your journal, it more than likely will be considered part of the journal and have the same ISSN, which needs to be printed and included in that publication. But let's also take a look at ISBNs, which is the International Standard Book Number. This is used when selling separately to non-subscribers, and it is okay for your journal supplement to have both an ISSN and an ISBN. And in fact, it might be an advantage if you intend to sell the supplement outside of your core journal audience. You may want to sell extra copies online or sell access. And in those cases, an ISBN would help a bookseller or a librarian be able to find that publication. It is also format specific. So if you have 4 different formats for your supplement, a hardcover, paperback, an audiobook, and an ebook, well, that's 4 separate ISBN numbers. Now, ISBNs are also procured through an agency in the U.S. that's R.R. Bowker. In Canada, that's the Canadian ISBN Service System, which is part of Library and Archives Canada. So there are a lot of pitfalls to be avoided, a lot of guidelines to be considered. You're probably thinking, wow, what are the best practices for proceeding with a supplement? There are a lot of things to consider here. So here's what I would recommend. First, try to get way out ahead of this. If you're doing a supplement, especially if you're doing it for the first time, you want to plan carefully. You want to know where the content is coming from. If you have advertisers, you'll want to contact them early in the process. You might even want to establish separate rates for the supplement than you have for your journal. You'll try to get a handle on your costs early in the process if you can. And just a word about that, I've had people come to me and say, well, what does it cost to publish a supplement? And of course, I have to say, well, I need more information. How many copies are you going to print? Is it even going to be printed? Is it going to be online? How many pages? How much color is going to be involved? This could affect especially the print costs. And if it's early in the process, you may not have those details yet. But it's okay to get a hypothetical quote just to help you get a ballpark figure if that helps you establish a budget. You could get a quote for a 200-page supplement with 10 pages of color, and you're going to print 1,000 copies. And ask your printer for the quote just so you have an idea and that you can move forward. And if that's clearly out of your range or you don't think you'll generate enough revenues to cover that, well, then you can revise your plan and maybe scale back. But it's important to have some idea of what those costs are going to be. You will also want to allocate the resources that you have. And keep in mind all the human resources as well, your editorial staff, your peer reviewers. Are they being asked to shoulder an additional burden here? One thing that can help you get a handle on all of these things is to find out if there's even a demand for the supplement, and that can be achieved through a survey. Find out if there is a market for this, if people are interested in the topic that you're planning to cover, and that can help guide some of your other decisions. And I would also add that when I talk about regulations from PubMed and the Postal Service and Thomson, I have talked to people at all of those places, and they're very eager to help. I would recommend getting in touch with them early in the process and tell them, look, this is what I'm planning to do. Do you have any advice for me? Or is this something you would recommend? They want to help you early in the process so that you don't encounter problems later on that are insurmountable. So I would encourage you to get in touch with them. I would also encourage you to think about marketing the supplement, especially if this has a potential audience beyond your core readership, and if this involves sponsorship and ad sales. You're going to want to get the word out. Let people know that this supplement exists. You should position it as unique in the market, especially if it covers a specific editorial topic, one that no one else is covering. And if the market reaches beyond your core audience, and that may include society members or anyone in the field who's been reading your journal. You could also create new tools. You might want to consider doing some social media, creating a blog, maybe posting videos on YouTube to draw attention to the content in the supplement. You could start now for a supplement that's planned down the road and put some house ads in your journal, either issuing a call for papers or simply to promote the supplement, to say, look, in 2015, look for this issue. It's going to be special. We're excited about it. You'll want to keep an eye out for it. You also might want to engage the authors and the editors in this marketing effort. Do some interviews with the authors of the content and ask them, why is this content special? Why is it unique? Why do people need to know about this? And try to start creating some buzz for the supplement. So now I want to look at what are some things that people are actually doing right now with supplements to their journals. I spoke with Chris Mikowski at the Journal of Coastal Research, and they publish occasional supplements that they refer to as special issues. And the way this works is that a guest editor will come to the journal and typically has an idea for the supplement, which is usually focused around a particular topic, and will provide funding for the publishing and printing costs. Now, this can be financially beneficial to the journal, but it does also involve a lot of coordination from the editorial office. The supplement is published as part of the journal, so it's under the title Journal of Coastal Research and has the same ISSN as the journal. It is included with the subscription if the guest editor provides enough funding, and it can also be sold separately. So even without a journal subscription, if you see a supplement that interests you, you can purchase just that supplement. So to summarize, the pros of this approach are that publication of these supplements adds to a specialized catalog of coastal research publications. But something to keep in mind is that it can be time-consuming and requires a lot of coordination from the editorial office. I also spoke with an industry consultant, Deborah McBride, who has worked with societies previously in her career, and she said there were two main types of supplements that she had worked with. One is the sponsored supplement, in which the society she worked with a sponsor to publish supplements on a particular topic. And one thing she said that her society had done was to establish a very clear policy regarding the editorial process, the peer review process, costs, and production. And this policy came in very handy. Now, one of the things that was contained in the policy was that the content of the supplements could not be restricted to products or devices that are being marketed by a single company, but the content had to be broader than that. And these were medical journals that she worked with. One was medical and one was allied health. And she stressed to the sponsors that rather than focusing on a product, you need to focus the content on a particular medical condition. And there was a strict adherence to this policy, which helped to avoid problems down the line. She explained that there were times when a sponsor approached with an idea for a supplement, but then when they saw the journal guidelines, they realized that it wasn't exactly what they had in mind, And so the deal fell apart before it ever got started, which is great because that means they didn't have to have those uncomfortable conversations down the road after they had already started reviewing the articles. Nevertheless, the program was successful, and more often than not, it sounds like it worked out very well. Another type of supplement that Deborah mentioned is that sometimes allied groups would contact her society if they didn't have their own publishing program. So another society or another industry group may come to her and say, we want to publish something as a supplement to your journal. And they had an editorial board member on their journal who worked with this program, and they published up to 4 of these per year. These supplements often came from meeting papers and became planned themed issues for the journal. Another case study I want to look at is the American Society for Nutrition, which publishes their policy for supplements online, and it does a good job of spelling out exactly what they expect and how the supplement program works. I spoke with Karen King and Sarah McCormick with the Journal of Nutrition. They publish 2 other journals as well, and they do as many as 9 supplements on an annual basis, which is a lot, and it keeps them busy, I'm sure. They have 12 in the pipeline right now. Typically, these supplements come from conference proceedings, and they are usually paid by the meeting sponsor. And the way that works is that the society charges on a per-page basis. And also, additional revenue can be gained by having additional toll-free linking and reprints to the supplement. The journal impact factor does often benefit from the supplements, but they always involve the editor to ensure that the highest quality content is being published. So advice from the American Society of Nutrition is to manage the expectations of the sponsor, especially when it comes to peer review and quality. Make it clear, if this is your policy, that peer review is going to be conducted on all of the articles submitted for the supplement, so that the sponsor understands if an article gets rejected. Also, you want to manage the deadlines. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're publishing a group of articles, publication of the supplement is only going to be as fast as the slowest of those articles. So it's important to stay on top of things all through the process and keep them moving. And also, you may consider staffing up, because if this is going to be an ongoing program, again, it's going to place an editorial burden on your staff. And the last case study that I have is for the Mineralogical Record. This is a magazine for mineral collectors and dealers and museum curators. It publishes supplements, and these are supported by donors and subscribers, individual and institutional. The magazine is also supported by advertising as well as single copy sales. So those are the main sources of revenue for the journal. When they publish supplements, those are typically included in an annual subscription, and single copies are also sold separately. The supplements are paid for by sponsors and contributors to the supplements, and the program is considered successful. In fact, they typically do not solicit content for the supplements. I spoke with Wendell Wilson of the Mineralogical Record, who said that they typically publish 3 supplements per year. Any more than that would create too many demands on the editorial staff, but it is something that's worked well for them. The pros of this approach are that it fulfills the magazine's mission to disseminate information. It serves as a bonus for subscribers, and the way that works is when they see the supplement, they feel like they're getting more for their money's worth when they subscribe to the magazine. And the supplement program is financially self-sustaining, so that works well for the journal. However, again, significant demands on the editorial staff, and there's very little opportunity to take advantage of any outside help. So the editorial staff is shouldering the burden all on its own. So I want to wrap up with just a summary of best practices and how to proceed if you're considering publishing a supplement to your journal. First of all, consider all the possibilities. That includes not only editorial, but financial. Think about whether or not you'll be able to sell extra copies of the supplement beyond your core audience. Think about whether you can partner with a sponsor and cover some of the costs of publication. And also consider an advertising program. It might be worth considering, even if your journal doesn't have an advertising program, is the supplement something that an advertiser would be interested in? Look at some of the people who are prominent in your industry or in your discipline and ask them whether they would be interested in advertising in a supplement, and try to get that information early in the process. I would also recommend establishing goals, not only financial but editorial goals. Is this something that we think is going to be a recurring supplement in the future? And when does this supplement need to be published? Certainly if it's in conjunction with something that's timely, then you really want to maintain a tight deadline structure and keep things focused. You also want to allocate all the resources that you have, not only for production, not only financial resources such as ad sales, but also your editorial staff, your peer reviewers, and if you work with outside vendors, make sure they know early in the process that you're planning to publish a supplement so that they can factor that into their workflows. And then I would add, finally, monitor the success of your supplement program and review. If you try a supplement and for whatever reason it doesn't work out for you, take a hard look at why it didn't work out. Maybe it was a topic that your readers just weren't interested in. Maybe you could have done more to promote the supplement and you didn't allow enough time or resources for marketing. There are any number of reasons that it may not have worked. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It just means you need to tweak your approach. So with that, I want to say a very special thank you to all the people who spoke with me about their supplement programs. And as promised, we also include links to the resources that I mentioned. And with that, I'm going to wrap up, and we are ready for questions. So I hope you've been chatting some in to Joanna.
Great. Thank you, Peter. I did get a couple of questions chatted in, and just a reminder, we will be posting the slides, so you'll get all of those great resources slides, and we'll also be posting a video of today's recording as well. So the first question I have is kind of about how to name a supplement. So can a supplement have a different name or title than the parent publication as long as there's still some sort of printed declaration that it is a supplement to the journal and that's made clear?
Sure, and an example of this that I've seen is a supplement that will have the journal name in the supplement title, but then we'll have a subtitle that's unique to the supplement itself. So again, it goes back to what your goals are for the supplement. If you want it to be included with the journal in all the same indexing and abstracting services, as well as PubMed and Thomson's JCR, then it's important to have the title of the journal on the supplement. But if you want to add a subtitle to that that's unique to the supplement, that's fine too.
Great. And I know you talked quite a bit about impact factor and how that can be affected by a supplement. So there's kind of a general question, does publishing a supplement generally increase or decrease your impact factor? And I think it probably varies quite a bit.
It does. One thing to keep in mind is that the impact factor is focused on research. So if you're publishing something like commentary or something that maybe comes from a meeting, you need to take a hard look at whether or not you think this information is going to be highly cited. Of course, as many people know, review articles are typically considered the highest cited articles. A lot of journals find that to be true. So if you want to publish a supplement of nothing but review articles, I would say that is most likely going to help your impact factor, and I would definitely plan accordingly.
Yeah. So I had a question that's a little bit specific to Allen Press customers. Just wanting to know, if you're an Allen Press customer, do you need to communicate directly with the post office to let them know about changes, or will Allen Press do that on your behalf? And since we do mail from here, if you're working with Allen Press to produce a supplement, you should just be in contact with your account manager here, and we can help talk to the post office, and you don't have to necessarily worry about doing all of that directly. I would imagine if you're working with another vendor who mails out your publications, that vendor would also have contacts at the post office. It might be a good place to start for that conversation as well.
I would agree with that, and I would just add that if you're working with a vendor in any area, you just want to let them know about the supplement early in the process so that they can help you plan for it.
Right. So another question, is there a limit on the number or type of supplements that any one journal can have in a year?
Well, that's an ambitious thought. I don't know that anyone has come to me asking, is there a maximum number of supplements they can publish? I don't know that there is. I don't think there is. Now, when I mention the Postal Service regulations, I do think you want to keep in mind anything that's going to influence the number of issues that go through the post office in a given year. That's definitely something to consider. Other than that, no, I think whatever can be supported both editorially and financially, I say, look into all the regulations that may apply to your specific situation, but I don't think there is an upper limit. Your staff may feel differently, but...
So another question that's a little bit specific again to Allen Press customers is about archiving and indexing the content online. So if you're using the Allen Press Pinnacle service, will we automatically include archiving and indexing for the supplement as we do for the parent journal? And I can probably speak to that a little bit. I think, again, you want to talk with your account manager just to make sure that we understand what your goals are for the supplement. But in general, if you're publishing a supplement that is under the umbrella of another publication, most times that is going to be hosted on your online site along with the other issues of the publication. We will probably be delivering the content then to the same aggregators or indexes that we deliver the normal content to, unless you tell us otherwise. So always a good idea to check and make sure that we're on the same page about things, but our basic automatic response would be to do the same thing with the supplement that we do with the other content, unless we know a reason why we shouldn't.
Right, and that goes back to the definition of supplement. If it is truly a supplement of the journal, it will have the journal title on it and will most likely show up on your Pinnacle website as a separate issue of the journal. Mm-hmm. If it, for some reason, is being treated as a separate publication, then that's something you'd want to talk to us about. We can host multiple publications on a Pinnacle website, but we would want to talk to you about that early in the process.
So another question, if our regular journal is print and online, but we do an online-only supplement to deal with a backlog of some kind, what do you think is the reaction of authors typically? Are they pleased with that, not pleased with that?
That's a great question. We have published some online-only content with some of the journals I work with. Some of that is being done by invitation. An author will be approached by the editorial office with the possibility of having their article published online only, and it does help clear out a backlog, but some authors are reluctant to go that route. They still want to see that article in print. So I think it will vary probably by discipline and even author to author. So if you're thinking of going that route, I would maybe survey the authors or maybe at least get a small focus group and ask what they think, and make sure you've got a variety of people represented in that group so you get a real feel for how receptive they would be to doing that.
Sure. I think, it can also depend somewhat on how you're marketing that content. If it's a special supplement and you do it as, topic-based and you're marketing that, I think an author is going to feel a lot better about that than if they feel like it's an overflow and they're published online because it's an overflow. So communicating that to your authors and then also in your marketing to make sure that it seems like something special instead of a bunch of extra stuff can probably help with that situation as well.
Sure, and if the authors are at all concerned about online-only content being indexed in the same places as the journal, as long as it's being published as part of the journal, whether in an issue or a supplement, that shouldn't be a problem. So if it's a medical journal and you ask an author if they want to be published online only, and their response is, look, I just want to make sure it's in PubMed, as long as it's published with the journal, that shouldn't be a problem.
So does the editor-in-chief of a publication typically maintain control over the editorial content of supplements, or do policies differ by society?
Well, I would double check with some of the references that I cited earlier, such as the World Association of Medical Editors and the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. I don't have those guidelines memorized, but I think they recommend that the journal editor-in-chief does maintain control of the editorial content, even of the supplements. Maybe your society has a different opinion of supplements and a different viewpoint on that, which may be fine, but if you're looking for an industry standard, I would think the editor-in-chief is pretty much considered the captain of the ship, even when a supplement's involved.
Sure. I think it's probably fairly common to have, some sort of guest editor involved with the supplement, but to completely take it out of the oversight of the editor-in-chief might be a little bit more rare. And I think, this also goes back to making sure that you're maintaining the integrity of the content of the journal as a whole. And anything that's published in a supplement is viewed as part of the journal, and so especially when you're thinking about things like impact factor, you do want to make sure that you're maintaining the editorial integrity.
The only exception I can think of to that is when the editor-in-chief is publishing in the supplement. And I work with a journal where occasionally the editor-in-chief publishes in the journal, and for those papers, a separate editor is appointed to handle the peer review process so that that editor is not put in an uncomfortable position of having to make a decision regarding his or her own paper. But that would be as true for the journal as a supplement.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Peter. It looks like that's all the questions that we have for today. I want to thank also all of our attendees, everyone who attended the webinar today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and that you learned some things to help you make good choices for your own publications. As always, we will be sending out a brief survey that will include links to both the slides and a video recording of today's session. We ask that you please do take a few moments to complete the survey. We're always looking for feedback on how we can improve future webinars, as well as suggestions for future topics. And don't forget, you can continue the conversation on both Facebook and Twitter. Thanks very much for joining us. That concludes our session for today.